Hello, everyone. It is I, the insane person who managed to clear 22 of the games in this series in a single day a week and a half ago. Also, apparently, Scramble's part of the Gradius series. I'm only going to be doing 3 games today, so it's not going to be nearly as insane. So, I'm going to just reset just to make sure everything's all fine and dandy. So this is Gradius Galaxies, though you may also know it as Gradius Generation. You may also know it as Gradius Advanced, depending on what part of the world you lived in, because Konami couldn't make up their freaking minds when localizing this game. So, let's look at my settings. I'm actually going to not be using default settings here. I'm going to be playing with 5 lives because this is a marathon, and I'll explain why I'm doing that later, but other than that, everything is basically default. And with that, let's get started, if I can figure out the right button to hit. There we go. Alright. So, first thing to understand about this game is that when you start out, you are very, very, very slow, so speed-ups absolutely need to be your first priority. In fact, one speed-up barely cuts it, so you pretty much need 2. So, in case it isn't apparent, this is a Game Boy Advanced game. Yeah, there's a Gradius game on the Game Boy Advance. This game is honestly a bit more obscure when it comes to the Gradius series. It's one you might not be too familiar with, but it's a pretty darn good game in its own right. The music has some to be desired, mostly because of the sound font it uses, but at least the way it's composed, it's actually pretty well. There's Jorge Fuentes, I believe is the name, has a whole playlist of arrangements from this game with a much more refined instrumentation that I would highly recommend checking out. But otherwise, you know, this is just kind of your standard run-of-the-mill Gradius game. You know, you pull things up, you get points, you try not to die. There's a few interesting things that this game has to offer. For example, it has 5,000 point bonuses, like that. But their locations are mostly pretty obvious. So I should probably mention early on, farming for score is not going to mean anything, because this game does have a few flaws I can attribute to it. One of the big ones is that it does not give you any extent whatsoever, and that is why I am playing with 5 life start instead of 3 life start. Because, again, this is a marathon, and I want to increase the likelihood of getting through on 1 credit. So I'm playing with Type A, which is just the standard Gradius 1 weapon loadout, missile, double laser. I use Type A because the Type A laser has one distinct advantage that's relevant in the final stage. So you'll see that when we get to that point. Here we have this section. So this first asteroid, I wait for it to be nearly perfectly horizontal and then just go through it. And then the next asteroid is actually pretty interesting because how much it tilts is actually dependent on the difficulty. So, the higher loop you're on, the farther it will tilt, and it can actually tilt up to a full, like, 90 degrees, or 45 degrees, I'm not exactly sure. Also, I think on loop 3 difficulty, I think it's on loop 3, the Challenger 1985 music from Gradius 1 is used in the stage instead. So that's an interesting Easter egg of sorts. That's stage 1, pretty simple. Only a couple minor things worth pointing out about it. And here we have our first boss, and you can take a guess as to what kind of boss it is. This is Terracore. It's just your run-of-the-mill core ship, except it has asteroids surrounding it. And yeah, most of the bosses in this game are pretty simplistic. But there's a couple pretty cool ones later on. I should also mention that this game is a little bit on the lengthy side for a Gradius game, even though it has only 8 stages. The stages themselves are somewhat on the long side, but it's still a pretty approachable game, I'd say. But there are a few sections that might not be the most suitable for novices. So this stage is, well, it's something, that's for sure. It's kinda similar to Stage 3 from Nemesis 2, where you've got a bunch of falling blocks that you can break apart. Also, a cool thing about these generators is that they can actually push you up. Like that. It's completely useless, but it's kind of funny. The Type A laser is decent overall. It does good damage. In fact, it can actually damage some of these crystals before they're even on screen, which could actually be a problem later on. Hopefully it's not. Oh. Wow! I have never done something like that before. I was actually debating activating the force field earlier. So here's the nice thing about this game, is that every checkpoint was actually designed to be recoverable. This game has a built-in hint system that is meant to help players with knowing how to recover at each checkpoint. And on the Japanese version of the game, Gradius Generation, there are actually challenge modes that you can unlock where you have to recover at all of the game's checkpoints at high rank. So Gradius Syndrome isn't as big of a problem as in this game as it can be in some other titles, like Gradius 3, for instance. But as I said, you don't get any score extends, so that just makes dying that much more punishing. And a while back, I did actually complete Challenge A, so I at least have a roadmap for recovering at each of these checkpoints. Let's get that. So, that's not the worst thing in the world to have happen, but it just puts me one life down for the rest of the game. But let that serve as a cautionary tale for being too greedy when playing these games, because that's what tends to happen. I'd really like to get the laser back. I haven't yet mentioned this, by the way, but weapons are double upgradable in this game as well. Lasers just become more powerful and missiles move faster. And as for the double, you'll see that. Now we're talking. Okay, I have no idea how I didn't die there. That was an incredibly stupid thing to do. Don't do what I just did. Okay, so here's another somewhat interesting boss known as the Crystal Gust. It's just another core ship thing, but it's kind of like a gun roll. And it has these generators that cause crystals to just fly around the arena haphazardly. You can destroy the generators, thankfully. This is a boss that's actually a bit of a nightmare to recover against, because you only get one power-up capsule. So in the challenge modes, it's actually kind of daunting. You gotta deal with that crystal rush again. Thankfully, if you destroy the generators, eventually the crystals just kind of fly off screen and they stop becoming a threat. Normally this boss is dead by now, but since I'm at lower power, it's taking a bit longer. I think we'll get one more round of the... Yeah, we're gonna get one more round of this. Almost there. There we go. Actually not too far behind on the score. So now I gotta spend a while getting powered back up. If you get to this point when you're at full power, the rank system in this game is actually relatively forgiving, but if you leave enemies on screen for too long, they tend to flood the screen with bullets. So just word of advice, once you get to this point in the game, just destroy everything as soon as it appears. Alright, I'm actually going to prioritize getting the force field here, just so I have an extra layer of insurance.
Force field.
So this stage is somewhat annoying. It's reminiscent of stage 1 from Gradius 2, obviously. You just got a bunch of flaming suns. And here's... that's one of the hardest 5,000 point bonuses in the game to get. Just because it's like right in the middle of that sun, and it's very easy to crash when going for it. And it's a very small space you need to hit. These fire lions are very, very annoying because later on it's become super difficult to track them down and kill them when you need to. Coming up in a little bit, there's going to be a part where 3 of them spawn at once, and they all spawn near the left side of the screen, so it's really difficult to get to them before they get to you. In fact, I think we might have already passed that point. Alright, so, who remembers the fire stage from Gradius 3 Arcade? Yeah, nobody liked that level, right? So how about we just go through exactly that? Except it's a little bit better, but it's still pretty bad. Yeah, each of these fireballs splits into 3 indestructible chunks, and you just kind of have to survive against them. Thankfully, vertical screen wrapping is a thing. And I'm not entirely fond of where I destroyed that red guy, because having a spare force field here is something you would really like, but I think I'll be fine. I'll just use that blue capsule that I totally was planning to have spawn right there.
Option.
Alright. We're fine. Got some subs here. Almost back to full power, just need to double upgrade my missile. Which I can do right here.
Missile.
So this stage's boss is known as Volion, or however you pronounce it. I'm not actually sure how you pronounce its name. This is an example of boss in quotation marks. Yeah, that boss is pretty easy. It's actually slightly different on a Gradius generation because it fires its fireballs in more rapid bursts, but it's still an easy fight. So we're going to be moving on to stage 4 where I'm going to use the double. But here's the fun thing about the double in this game. If you double upgrade it, it's just like Gradius Gaiden and it gives you a third shot that goes behind your ship. So, I won't be using this nearly as often as I use it in Gaiden, but I'll still be using it. I'll basically just be having this on for the next 3 stages. Okay, so here we have our usual volcano stage, except it's not actually a usual volcano stage because the volcano just kind of falls from the ceiling. So from my understanding, all the volcano stages are actually like supposed to be the same planet. I don't remember what the name of the planet is, but I think that's what the Gradius lore suggests. Also, all 4 of my options are beating at nearly the same time. That's actually kind of cool. There's a few noteworthy things about this stage, I guess, but most of them are in the latter half. This is just, you know, standard terrain, cannons everywhere, hatches everywhere. volcano coming up here. I actually want to have one of my options over the volcano so I can just fire missiles into it. Which does a pretty good job of keeping the rocks contained. So this section probably seems a bit scary to you at first because you have these waterfalls, and you have to think to yourself, oh gosh, is the Big Viper waterproof? Well, in Nemesis 90 Kai, it's not, but in this game all the water does is just push you down. So, you can safely pass through those. Got another 5,000 point bonus right here. Like to refresh my force field soon. Hopefully I can get a cannon to fire at me. There we go.
Force field.
This final portion of the level is somewhat tricky, because you have to navigate through these waterfalls while not letting them push you into the floor. Kind of like that. And also here, if you hang back for a little bit, there's a couple of additional duckers that appear for some reason. There's that. So another version difference here. So on Gradius Generation, the Japanese version, there is a 5,000 point bonus right here. That's not present on any other version of the game, but I'm playing on Gradius Galaxies just because, you know, that's the version I'm playing on. I am playing this on BizHawk, in case anyone's wondering. I do have a physical cartridge of this game, but I have no way of capturing it. This is Bolboros. This is another pretty interesting fight, because you kind of see it as two portions, and whichever one you destroy first, the other one kind of just goes nuts. So I like to destroy the big one first. Because I find the smaller one a bit simpler to deal with when it's by itself, because all it does is this orb attack. And you can farm from it if you want, but I'm not going to. So that's what I was talking about earlier, where if like a formation of enemies spawn when you're at full power, they tend to flood the screen with bullets if they're alive for longer than like 5 seconds. So this is the point in the game where it doesn't necessarily become bullet hell, I'd say. It's just you kind of just need to be cautious with what you're doing, especially given the limited screen resolution. So stage 5 is yet another Moai stage. And the Moais in this game are fickle, to say the least, because they take forever to open their mouths, and doing damage to them is a little difficult with most weapons. Alright, there's a 5,000 point bonus that is nearly impossible to find, and I just found it. It's right here. This entire stage is like 2 screens tall, so with the vertical screen wrapping, it's actually pretty difficult to find that 5,000 point bonus before it's too late. And like I said, you don't really need the 5,000 point bonuses, considering this game does not give you any score extents. They're just kind of fun to find. Also, the Moai's rings fire suicide bullets on higher loops, so just bringing that up, because I think this is the only game where that happens. Some Moais later on here behave like red Moais, and they get the ability to turn around. I'd see that here in just a moment. Yeah, the Moais up there and this one down here are turning around. And now we have ring zubs of some variety.
Force field.
And then this section's fun. We get regenerating red Moais. So we had just regenerating Moais to begin with in Gradius 4, but now they're red Moais. So again, that's kind of something. There's actually 2 different paths you can go down there. And here we get some more regenerating red Moais. Trying to get a good option positioning here. And here you can see the power of the level 2 double in conjunction with the missile. Pretty much nothing can touch me here. Now we have some big Moais. These are actually kind of important to destroy quickly because these tiny Moi guys are stupid. But they're hard to destroy quickly with just the double. Alright. Boss for this stage is an interesting take on Moi bosses, I'll give it that. So these are the Dogalts, or again, I don't exactly know how you pronounce them. Clearly they're supposed to be derived from Dogus from Gradius 3. They're just kind of 3 robotic Moi heads that do stuff. So, I'm playing this fight with the double, which basically means I've committed to timing this boss out, because it's actually really hard to get enough damage in on these things without the laser. But with the laser, this attack is a bit more deadly. And with the double, you are able to take care of those orbs a lot more easier, except it's harder to do damage to the Moi. So I'm just gonna kind of farm from them, and the fight will just kind of have to time out. I'll try my best to see if I can, in fact, kill them. And also, you can get the 3 Dogalts out to sync with each other, which makes the fight... Honestly, it doesn't really make the fight that much harder. This isn't the only game in this block where we'll be seeing mechanical Moais. By the way. Alright, so those 2 Moais are going to time out because I won't be able to do any more damage to them. On the bright side, I did get a lot of score from this fight, and you still get score for timing them out. Just wait. And there you go. So yeah, that fight can go by a lot more quickly, but I'm just safing it out. Alright, who's ready for the worst stage in the game? By a absolute long shot. Like, it's not even close how bad this stage is compared to any other stage in the game. People talk about Gradius 4's cell stage being ridiculously hard. This game dwarfs that by a lot. And it's not necessarily that it's hard, it's just stupidly designed. So, this first part isn't too bad. You've got fangs in the ground. The purple ones you can't destroy, but the red ones you can. You got a couple things that shoot return fire here. I'm actually gonna take some damage here, because I actually am going to want to lose my force field for the section coming up. Because here comes the most jankly programmed thing in all of Gradius. These freaking arms. So these arms kinda recoil based on how you shoot them, but their physics are not consistent. And they don't really like to cooperate sometimes. Yeah, basically getting through there just kinda comes down to getting lucky. Like, even if you just graze them with your force field, they'll just whip right into you and kill you. It's bad. It's really, really bad. Thankfully, the rest of the arms you encounter in this stage are not quite as terrible. Yeah, trust me when I say that part with the very tight spaces is way harder than I made it look. And now we have this section. This game probably has the worst regenerating walls out of any game in the series. Because look how fast they regenerate. You have, like, basically no time to hide out in the walls. You have to make use of these tiny spaces. And have fun recovering here on higher loops, because all of those cells fire suicide bullets. And also, sometimes the wall doesn't fully regenerate, but that's usually not that big of a deal, because you just have to shoot the wall a little bit to get it back in sync. I assure you, I am making this stage look way easier than it is. Yeah. Alright. I gotta be careful in this last part, because there's a bunch of floating arms.
Force field.
So, ideally you could get through here without shooting, but you also have those Ducker-esque enemies that fire at you, so you do have to fire a little bit. And with the level 2 double, it's risky because you fire in all 3 directions. Alright, so thankfully we made it through all the hard parts. Also, there's a 5,000 point bonus here as well. There. Here's the Brachion Eye. It's a cool boss, I'd say. Bit easier than the rest of the stage itself. So as you destroy when you destroy each of these like tentacles surrounding the eye kind of like charges for you, and the remaining tentacles start to move a little bit faster. But you can also just speed kill it by just destroying the eye like that. I assure you, that stage is hard. Really, really hard. Like, if you get there your first time playing through, you're probably going to die a bunch of times. One little fun fact about this game is that there's actually 4 variations of the Konami code you can use. The standard variation gives you full power and then kills you. I think if you replace left and right with, actually, I'll talk about that later. This stage sucks.
Double.
I think I'm gonna use the double here. So it's very reminiscent of the asteroid stages from Salamander and Life Force, including the fact that you have those awful fire geist-like enemies that split into shards when you destroy them. And as far as I can tell, the asteroids are purely random, so you can't really like formulate a route through here.
Force field.
Alright, that was actually pretty decent luck. Yeah, that's a very, very easy checkpoint to die to, because it's very easy to just get cornered by something.
Laser.
Right, time to finally switch back to the laser for an extended period of time. Now we have a somewhat fun section. We have a bunch of those hatches that just float in. This is a pretty good opportunity to rack up a bunch of score. Because first it's in pairs of 2, and now it's in 2. First it was in pairs of 1, now it's in pairs of 2, and now we have 3. We also have more of those fire geist-ish enemies, so they can be annoying.
Force field.
And then, as if this stage wasn't similar enough to Salamander, we just have a giant rush of enemies at the end. And if you're wondering how the heck are you supposed to recover against him, there's tiny gaps in the formation lines that you can abuse to just go from one side to the other. But they do fire at you a lot. That's another really hard stage. And then this next boss is the only boss to have ever made a comeback appearance in another game. This is Perla Merlda, and it actually appeared in Automedius Excellence boss rush.
Destroy the core.
It's just, you know, your standard run-of-the-mill core ship. Except it takes some inspiration from Covered Core. So I'm actually going to be trying to destroy both the laser cannons because of an interesting quirk with this fight. Alright, so here's what's fun about destroying the laser cannons. Normally, Perla Merlda uses those during the missile attack that it does, but if you destroy them and then it tries to do the missile barrage, it just stops attacking you at all. Like, I'm not kidding, I could have just sat there and it would have done nothing. So, wonderfully programmed boss there. And with that, we are off to the final stage, which also happens to be the longest stage in the game. I'm pretty sure this stage has like 13 checkpoints. Not quite out of the woods yet, but we will be soon. So for starters, there's a high-speed section, reminiscent of Gaiden. And this is the main reason why I have the Type A laser. Is because there's a bunch of blockers in the stage that are really hard to push away with other lasers, but with Type A, you can just push them off screen before... You can push them away before they even appear on screen. So you need to take a very specific route through this high-speed stage in order to not make it into any dead ends, or you can just cheese it by going at the very top of the screen and just going above the entire thing. And there's actually a singular cannon up there that you have to shoot, and you'll see the pathway back into this stage. Yeah, it's right there. That little opening at the top there is how you get back into the main portion of the stage. So I gotta be careful here because there's more of those blocker things. I have to take them out before I deal with these barriers. Also in this high-speed stage, there's a 5,000 point bonus, but it's in a dead end, so you have to kill yourself to get it, so it's not worth it. Now we have a really tedious boss fight. This is Rexion Core. And for this boss, you have two assistants that kind of do additional attacks. Destroying them obviously helps a little bit. Lasers basically just wait until they're horizontally aligned with you, and then they charge for your vertical position. So I destroy the core, but the boss doesn't blow up right away because it has this, I guess, generator that basically revives it. So there are 3 phases to this boss fight. Each phase has its own checkpoint, and the checkpoints do not give you any power-ups. So recovering against this boss sucks. And that was honestly a pretty terrible design choice by Konami. The second phase is on the easy side as well. You can just kind of destroy that first assistant and then hang back and take care of the second one, and now the rest of the fight is easy. It's the third phase where things get really, really hard and really scary. This phase has machines that shoot out Zubs. The assistants shoot out Zubs here. And also those fire things, they explode into giant sunbursts. So, really do not want to... Yeah, you really don't want to destroy them like that. And then, for the rest of the fight, it just kind of bounces up and down and endlessly shoots out debris. And this part of the fight is incredibly scary. Because, like I said, each of these fireballers splits into a giant sunburst. And if you continuously destroy them, it gets really, really flooded. And the debris that those things shoots out just gets faster and faster as the fight goes on. But made it through it somewhat smoothly. And then that's the end of that fight.
Force field.
And we have another traditional final Gradius base stage where you're going to be pounded with heavy artillery and other stuff. You also have those rockets that charge for you, and if they collide with the ceiling, then they just become indestructible, but then they float back down. Here, you kind of need to stay near the front of the screen because eventually the floor tries to close in on you. And it does so in a somewhat weird way. There's also some enemies that appear near the front of the screen, so you need to be constantly shooting. Tries to close you off completely. I also noticed that moved my options without actually moving my ship. You'll see that again here in just a second. It's gonna do another one of those scrolls upwards. Hatches. I think we can say goodbye to those hatches now. And then to round it all off, we've got these rocks that just kind of fly in from the screen. You can actually destroy the rocks, but they take so much firepower, it's usually just worth it to just dodge them. And there's a 5,000 point bonus here that I'm going to go for. That's right there. It's really hard to hit without crashing into something. And we get to this gun wall, which I believe is called Cliff Core. This is a very stressful gun wall to fight, because there's a lot you have to be paying attention to at once, so I'm going to get my options ahead of this laser beam and just try to take care of a bunch of it at once before it even begins attacking. So I have to spend less time actually dodging everything. Recovering against this boss is actually pretty easy because there's a safe spot that you can use to time it out, but it takes forever. So, let's just not have to do that. And now we're in the home stretch. Just a little bit more to go. Now we have more of the fast regenerating walls from stage 6. And along with these barriers that are supposed to kind of block you off. I have to wait for the right moment here before I can go through this wall. And then just go through here. that's kind of it for that. We just got one more obstacle before the final boss. I wouldn't say that's the hardest gun wall, but it's definitely up there. Alright, here we have the rotating wall. This is the final, like, crab walker-esque obstacle. So you're supposed to kind of hide out in these tiny little gaps. This is a very hard section to get through with 2 speed-ups, so it is very likely that I will die here. And then, as it rotates back, you need to go in this first opening, otherwise you will die. And how could that be? Well, I just died there. So that's actually fine. That means I can just show this off. So here's a fun thing you can do here. So your hitbox is actually pretty small when it comes to colliding with, like, terrain. So that's possible. And this is a lot easier with 0 speed-ups, so you should be able to get through this. Yeah. Navigating through those tight spaces is way easier. So here's what it does. It grows. And if you don't take the first opening, it will inevitably kill you. I'm gonna try something kind of stupid here because I have the lives to do it. So here's how real men survive the final portion of this. Remember how I said how your hitbox is pretty small when it comes to colliding with terrain? Okay, yeah. You can survive that. But I just wanted to try and show that off, but now I'll just do it the regular way. Just gotta wait a little bit longer. So, technically I did need those extra lives, but I really didn't. Because I could have just not tried to do that stupid maneuver in the last part of that, and I would have been fine. But either way, this should still be on 1cc. Alright, this is how you're supposed to do this. You just stay above it. Or not above it. You don't want to be directly above it. Because it does that. And now we just have the final boss. I think it's called, like, the Helios Brain or something. And as always, it's the hardest boss in the game. If I had full power, this thing would be dead by now, but it's gonna take a little bit longer. And that's Gradius Galaxies. We'll stop timer there. So, that game is relatively simple to get through in the grand scheme of things, but as you saw, there were a couple of hard parts. I went pretty smoothly, all things considered, aside from that stupid brain rot in stage 2. And trying to get greedy with the rotating wall. Got a very satisfying ending theme that unfortunately suffers from being in this abysmal NES-based sound font. Oh yeah, I was going to talk about the different Konami codes. So, the standard Konami code kills you. If you're placed left and right with L and R, you get full power without. You get full power without self-destructing. If you do, I think it's down, down, up, right, left, A, B, you get full power, but 1 life is subtracted from your life count. And then if you do that in reverse, but replace left and right with L and R, then it's the same thing where you get full power and you just die. And either way, if you use any of the Konami codes or continue, you can no longer get a high score because it actually adds score to the 1s digit, which makes it impossible to get a high score. But that's Gradius Galaxies. We'll throw it on over to intermission while I set up for the next game in this little block.